Great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining Corporate College's webinar series, Live with the Experts. All of our sessions are really aimed at providing you with really relevant information, topics, tools, everything you need to support you and set you up for success. We do that through 4 primary themes. Today's session is focusing on personal health and well-being, but other topics also include working remotely, navigating a transition, even virtual leadership. And this series, like everything else that Tri-C and Corporate College does, is really geared to providing you valuable resources to help you, to help your team, not only succeed, but thrive starting today. Our newest resource is working through the state of Ohio's Tech Cred program. You may have noticed or heard that on May 28th, Lieutenant Governor John Husted announced this new program, and they're accepting employer applications through June 30th. Corporate College is really proud to be an authorized training partner with the state of Ohio. And essentially, Tech Cred is a program that reimburses Ohio employers for their employees to earn technology-based credentials. And I'll have more information at the conclusion of Chris's program, so stay tuned. Or if you're interested right now, I'll also post in the chat my email address. So if you want, you can email me and I'll send you more information. But back to today's session. As many of you know, Corporate College has a very distinguished and talented facilitator and subject matter expert team. And today I'm thrilled to present to you Chris Vassiana. Chris really has leveraged his expertise in fitness and nutrition, stress management, and health coaching for nearly 15 years. While working in a variety of different industries, Chris has designed one-on-one health coaching services and wellness challenges, strength and conditioning programs, you name it, just a variety of educational programs and really health-based activities. Joining Cuyahoga Community College back in 2011, Chris started as the wellness coordinator before transitioning over to the academic side as the program manager for our wonderful sport and exercise studies program. Today, Chris runs these 2 programs involving nearly 200 students and over 130 clients, which I'm happy to say I've been one of them. So with that, I am so very pleased to present to you Chris Vassiana. Good morning, Chris. It's such a pleasure to have you here this morning. It's a nice day outside too.
Beautiful day, right? It's a perfect day to, go for a run, maybe do some cycling.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and that's going to be our main focus for today. So my hope for this presentation is really to give you guys really good advice, whether you're a beginner with running or cycling, or even if you're looking for something to kind of take your performance to the next level. If you're looking to run a faster 5K, are you looking to cycle faster, get better times with that? I hope to have something a little bit for everyone in this presentation. Also, my hope for this presentation is for it to be very interactive as well. So I'll be monitoring the chat over here on the right side of my screen. And if you guys got questions along the way, definitely feel free to send those my way. But first thing I want to do is just kind of challenge you a little bit. So when it comes to running and cycling, we tend to think of that term cardio. So I want to ask you guys, what do you think the term cardio means to you? Like when you think cardio, what really comes to you? So we got heart rate over here. Is it things like, running on the treadmill, cycling, doing aerobics classes? Those are all things that we typically think about when we think about cardio. We've got aerobic. Yes, that's actually a really good one. I like that a lot. Strenuous activity. Yes, it could definitely be very strenuous as well. What I want to do is just challenge you again to rethink the term cardio. So cardio is just a general term that is often associated with a traditional approach to conditioning. Because what I want to do with you guys is take that cardio to the next level. There's actually a different term that's actually more appropriate than cardio, which is called energy system development. It sounds cooler too. I like energy system development more than I like the term cardio. So unfortunately, I have to warn you guys, there's going to be some science involved in the first couple slides here, just so you get a basic understanding of what I will be talking about. Ooh, the slide is very sciencey, but don't panic. We have 3 different energy systems that our body uses. And this is going to be really important for what I'm going to talk about later when it comes to actually programming your aerobic fitness, or like your running or your cycling. This is going to be a very important concept. So looking at the list over here on the screen, you can see that the body has 3 main energy systems. There's the phosphagen system, which is for really short intensity activities, or high intensity but short activities. The glycolytic system was only really active from 30 seconds to 3 minutes, or primarily active. And then the oxidative system is for any activity longer than 3 minutes. So that's the longer than 3 minutes, you're probably thinking like, hey, running and cycling is going to be into the oxidative category. And you are correct. It's going to be primarily oxidative, or someone even mentioned aerobic in the comments here as well. But what I'm going to do when I talk about programming, and for you guys to improve your performance, even though running is considered oxidative, where it's longer than 3 minutes, for you to be a better runner or better cycler, you're going to have to actually exercise and work those different energy systems as well, because they're all active at a given time. It's just the extent of their activity is going to be a little bit different. So, for example, for running, 90% of your run might be oxidative, but you're also using that phosphagen and glycolytic system as well. So if you're looking to make yourself a good runner or cyclist, you're going to have to train those different energy systems as well. And I'm going to talk about specific programming related to that and what kind of activities you could do to train those different energy systems. I also included in this PowerPoint as well. So I'll make the link available to you guys when we send out the handout. But if you click on the link on this PowerPoint here, it'll take you to a video by Gatorade. And they did an excellent job just kind of putting it in simple terms what these different energy systems are. It's a quick, 90-second video, but it puts it in terms of like a race car and how it uses different fuels to cause the car to move. So it's a really great video. I highly recommend that you guys check it out. We probably won't have time to actually watch it during the presentation today, but that link will be available to you. All right. So why don't we go ahead and start our first focus in on running. So starting a running program. When it comes to the equipment that you're going to need, the really great thing about running is it's probably the cheapest form of cardiovascular or aerobic exercise that you could get in. You can see here on the slide, I have just different examples of different types of equipment you could use for running. And the extent to what you actually use is up to you, and how much money you're looking to spend is going to be up to you. But let's just start with what you definitely need. We all need a good pair of running shoes. So you can see here on the screen, this is the Hoka One One. They're the Clifton 6s. They're my preferred shoe, in case you're wondering. Just look at that cushion support on that thing. Like you can see the white portion of it. That's mainly a lot of cushion. So it's really good for some low impact activity. The running shoe is going to be really important. So what my recommendation is for everyone on the call is to check out, if you don't have a good pair of running shoes, check out Vertical Runner, Fleet Feet Sports, and Second Sole. Those are all a lot of good local running shoe companies in our area. And just don't go there just to like browse the shoes. There's the staff on there are very knowledgeable, and they could give you advice as to what type of shoe you should get. So the really cool thing, and I've even done this there, is they make you run up and down the store. They analyze your gait or your running pattern, and then they recommend a shoe based off of that. So I actually ended up doing that. They measure your correct shoe size too, which is really helpful. And it's just a really good opportunity to get your correct running shoe, because that's such an important factor when it comes to running, having that good running shoe. One common question that I typically get with running shoes is, how long should I wear them before I get a new pair? The problem that happens with a lot of people is um, they'll use the same running shoe for years. And like, well, it looks good. It doesn't look like there's much wear on it. It was really protective of it. The problem is with running shoes is they wear like tires on your car. So even though they might look good, the tread and the cushiony portion of it is it's just not going to be supportive for running. So what I like to tell people too, when it comes to running shoes, I even got mine here. Look at the exact same from the slide. You can see here the actual like cushiony portion, and every shoe's got it. This one's a little bit bigger than what you're probably normally used to seeing. But if this part of the white part of the shoe looks like wrinkly skin, that could be a sign that your cushioning is starting to go. So it might be a good opportunity for you to, change your running shoes at that point. Also, if you're an Excel nerd like me, you could also track your mileage and how much mileage you put on your shoe. Because again, just like tires on a car, you could track your mileage and replace it after, about 400 miles. So they do last long. It just depends on the extent of how long you actually run for. But I highly recommend you track your mileage, or just, visualize, look at the wrinkly part of the cushiony part of the shoe. Just a good tip there as far as, when to change your shoe. Other equipment, so that's the basics. You definitely need a running shoe. There's some different mixed thoughts that I have on barefoot running, the barefoot running shoes. But I could definitely talk about that at the end of the presentation if you guys still have questions on those in particular. The other stuff that you could get is just an added bonus. And if you're looking to get like more data, or just different kind of small competitive edges, I guess you could say, the socks that you see on the screen, those are compression socks. They're pretty much go just a little bit below the knee. Those are actually pretty helpful too. They not only have the compression, which increases circulation to your calves, but it's going to help warm the calves as well. So it's just like doing like a warm up, but you're not really moving. It's a really good tool that you could use, and that's pretty cheap. About, I would say, like close to like $30 maybe for a pair of those socks, but they'll vary. I forgot to mention the cost of running shoes. You're probably looking at like the low hundreds for a really good pair of running shoes. So in case you were wondering what the cost there. Other things that you could do for running to kind of take your running to that next level is getting some type of GPS watch. And those are going to vary in terms of cost and features as well. So when it comes to like the one that you see on the screen, this one's the Fitbit Charge 4. It's their new one. I think it runs around $125, Father's Day special. And that one's it's going to give you some basic information, just like how many steps you walk a day. But from a running standpoint or cycling, it does have GPS on there, so it could tell you your mileage for your rides or your runs. If you don't want to buy a watch, or you're not a watch person, there's also you could just use your iPhone or Android. You could just get an app that's related to running or cycling. So there's a lot of good apps out there that could do that for you. So that's really it in terms of like the running equipment. We're going to talk a little bit more about some advanced features to some of the equipment out there in just a little bit here. But you got your equipment, you're ready to go. And now it's time to warm up. So you got all your equipment, you're dressed for success. Now it's time to warm up. So this is going to be a little bit different than your typical warm up. So when you guys think of stretching and warming up, you're probably thinking more like those static stretches where you're like touching your toes and holding it for 20 to 30 seconds. You might be thinking of just like your typical hamstring stretch. You actually don't want to do those before a run or biking. You want to do something called a dynamic warm up instead. So on the screen here, you can see that I have kind of like my list of dynamic warm up activities or drills that you could do before a run or cycling. So just an important note, this is going to be the exact same for running and cycling. So there's no need to have specific dynamic warm ups for both separately. Some of the exercises on here, you can see the toy soldier. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm not going to show you the link, but basically it's where you're just, bringing your leg up like this. So you look like a toy soldier. And then butt kickers, just as the name implies, you're just kind of like running in place, but it's more of an exaggerated run where you're actually kicking your butt. High knee march, A skips, bent over straight leg hinge. I included the links to those in the video or inside the PowerPoint, so those will also be posted. So I highly encourage you guys to check out those links and incorporate some of those dynamic warm-ups into before you start your actual workout. I have other ones to consider: the penguin walks, walking lunges, and really all you have to do is YouTube those as well. So there's a lot of good videos out there that give you the step-by-step. So what I like to say is sweaty is ready. So the static stretches, again, they're not really good. They don't really prove a point before actually, or a purpose before actually beginning a running or a cycling workout. The dynamic warm-up is going to be what gets your heart rate elevated. It improves your range of motion. There's a reason why you would do the dynamic as opposed to the static stretches. And that's what I hear a lot of the times from people, like, man, I did a 5K, but I didn't really get my groove until, mile 2 or mile 3. And that's where this dynamic warm up will really help. Because again, that increased heart rate as well as the increased range of motion to kind of help hopefully prevent injuries. All right. So now when it comes to running, one thing that you guys could do at home that could really help to improve your running performance is actually something called monitoring your cadence. And I'm going to talk about this. I'll give you some practical ways that you can monitor your cadence as you run. But one of the reasons why that monitoring cadence is going to be really important is because it helps to prevent overstriding. Overstriding for running is a very bad thing because of a couple reasons. It's going to, increase your chance of injury, and then it's not going to make you an efficient runner. So I have on the slide here on the right-hand side, you can see there's a car with 2 tires. One tire is normal, the other one's flat. Think about your running stride as these 2 tires. The good tire is the one that you'll want to try to mimic with running. It's nice and tight. It's pretty circular like this. The other tire, the flat tire, notice how it's longer. And with it being longer and flatter, it's not going to be as efficient as a normal size tire. So think about your running stride in a similar way. Monitoring cadence while you run is going to help to prevent you from overstriding. And I'll talk a little bit about that in the next couple slides. But it's a great way for you to kind of have that as a guide for your workouts by listening to cadence and matching it with your feet. And it's a good diagnostic tool as you jog or run. Because if you're noticing that your cadence is lower, it instantly tells you that you have to increase your cadence as you run. So really important aspect of running is monitoring cadence. So again, the benefits of monitoring cadence is improving your running efficiency, reducing the risk of injury, because the higher the cadence, that means that you're going to be spending less time contacting the ground. Like this is, let's say this is a high cadence right here. Less time is actually going to be in contact with the ground. This is my shoe. This is the ground. Now with a slower cadence, you're going to be on the ground a little bit longer, which is going to be a higher impact. So that's why the high cadence mark is actually going to be a beneficial thing from an injury prevention standpoint. It's going to reduce muscle damage in training and increase speed as well. When you guys, if you guys try this at home, try running at the cadence on the screen, the 180 steps per minute. It's going to force you to run faster just because of the high cadence portion of that kind of training. And it's going to enhance recovery because it's going to use less oxygen, which is actually a good thing. So the magic number when it comes to running is 180 steps per minute. And I'll talk a little bit about how you can measure that. All right, so just this slide just kind of shows you the main benefit again with the monitoring the cadence. You can see on the right-hand side that the 180 steps per minute is going to be a really good thing because it actually activates something that utilizes muscle tendon elasticity. That's what that MTE stands for. So it activates a physiological process that actually gives you a training benefit. So for an average runner, or the average runner or jogger that's running, is typically around 165 steps per minute for their cadence. So you can see here that's a pretty significant increase to go from 165 to 180. And you can see the benefit here. So mechanical efficiency is going to increase by up to 50%. And then oxygen consumption is going to decrease by 20%. So using less oxygen is actually a good thing because you're not like, majorly, taking in wind while you're running. So then what you have to do is practice it. Just like everything else, if you're trying to be better at a sport, you're going to have to actually practice it to do better. So what I have here, I actually just downloaded an app on my phone. It's just I just went to the App Store and Googled or searched metronome timer, and I found one on my phone here. So I'm going to show you, or you guys can listen to see what 180 steps per minute is actually like. So every time you actually hear a beat, that is a foot hitting the ground. So if it's like this, like foot, 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 not the same foot, but both your feet. That is 180 steps per minute. And this is a free app that you guys could use. So it's kind of annoying if you're out in public running and you're running by somebody and they just hear that metronome sound. It's okay, you're trying to get better. So you have to practice it in order for it to be effective for you. So you could use the app on your phone, the 180 steps per minute. If you don't want to hear the very fast clicking sounds like this, you could actually change it to 90 steps per minute. So that way, every time your left foot or right foot hits the ground, the same foot hits the ground, that's when you would try to, match with the beat. So just like that. But then again, your other foot would be hitting as well. So using the metronome is going to help you become a more efficient runner with using it. So you could get like those clip-on ones, which is on the picture on the left. That could give you the exact same thing, although not as big as carrying around a phone. You could download specific playlists. If you go to Apple Music, there's something called Jog Tunes, where they have playlists that are set to a certain beat per minute. So that way it's a little bit more enjoyable than hearing the beats in your ear. And then also higher end running watches or cycling watches will have, this is a Garmin here, they'll actually monitor your cadence through the watch. So all you have to do is look at your watch and see that, hey, I'm at 165 steps per minute. Maybe I should, increase my cadence or increase my speed a little bit for my run. So one thing that I really want to stress to everyone on the call here is if you're a beginner, don't just go out for a 20-minute run at the 180 steps per minute rate. It's going to be really intense probably for you. So what I would recommend you do is do an interval training workout where maybe you only do the 180 steps per minute for 30 seconds and then take like a minute and a half rest before you do the next interval of the 30 seconds. Because doing it for that long of a period of time is going to be, something that's going to be not as like appropriate, especially if you're beginning. And then even if you're not beginning and you're an intermediate athlete and you're just not sure that you could keep up with 180 steps per minute, use the interval training to help break it up. All right. So the other thing is when it comes to running efficiently, you have to practice good technique. So again, just like with any sport, you're going to have to do different drills to help you become a better runner. There's something out there called the pose method of running, and you can see it on the bottom left of the screen, POSE. This is actually the correct running form for long endurance runs. So like a 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon. Notice that on the picture on the screen that the runner they don't have a long stride. It's pretty compact, which is really great for running efficiency, because the best runners aren't the ones that just run a lot. The best runners are the ones that actually have efficient form because they're going to be using less energy when they run. So you do have to practice these different pose drills to improve your running form. So go to YouTube, just type in pose running drills or practice, and then you could see a lot of different examples of different activities you could do with that. On the right hand side of the screen, you'll see there's an app called Huddle Technique. What you could do with that is you could actually prop up your phone at home, and you could actually, if you have a treadmill, you could run on the treadmill and record yourself and compare it to the slide that you see here to see how your technique is. Because notice on the left-hand side of the screen, the runner on the left in that pose form, she's got the heel, it's pretty much almost directly underneath her butt. That's going to be a way for you guys to kind of see how efficient your stride is. Just that nice compact form. Notice she's got a slight bend in her leg that's actually on the ground. There's a slight bend in the knee, because if you have a lockdown knee when you run, you know how much pressure that's going to be on your knee when you run. So you want to try to avoid that for sure. So again, technique is so important. So that's the big recap here, because you don't have to be the best runner in terms of, oh, I did 50 miles over the last couple weeks, so I'm going to be a better runner. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. You'll improve that way, but you'll get better improvements if you actually have good running form. All right, so another concept here, and this is going to relate to cycling as well, but we'll talk about cycling a little bit later. Running with power is something that you can do to monitor your intensity. So monitoring your intensity when you run, people always think about heart rate predominantly, but power is actually going to be a better indicator of your actual exercise intensity. And there's some pros and cons with each as well. The pro with power is it's going to be really accurate. It measures things in terms of watts. So you might be, running at 125 watts, for example. That's going to give you a better indication of your intensity than heart rate. Because the problem with heart rate is it's very dependent on your environment. So you could be stressed out. What does stress do to your heart rate? It increases it. So you could be going for a run while you're stressed out, and your heart rate could be all out of whack. Also, the environment in terms of the physical environment is also a factor, because if it's, like it was earlier this week where it was 90 degrees and humid, just by you going outside, your heart rate's going to be elevated. So heart rate's just not a perfect measure of exercise intensity. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Watts and power are going to be the big things there. So for running, they actually have a foot pod, which is the stride pod on the left. So I got it on my shoe here. You can see it just kind of clips to your shoe there. And that's pretty cool too, because it gives you cadence. So you don't have to actually use the metronome. It'll sync it to like your watch or your phone as you're running. So you can just look at it and see what your running cadence is. But it's going to give you that power measurement, which is even more important. There's running watches and cycling watches that'll give you power as well, just through the watch alone. This is the Polar Grid X. It just came out. That'll run you about $400, whereas the FootPod probably runs you closer to like the 100 mark. So it is more expensive. So I am aware of that. So if you don't have the resources to get one of these, heart rate, again, it's okay. But just don't view it as the be all end all, because there are some inaccuracies associated with that. All right, so if you're a beginner and you're like, well, this stuff is great, Chris, the whole cadence, power measurement stuff, running form, that's all great, but I'm just looking to go for a run. So what I recommend for beginners is there's two apps that I really recommend. The first one, if you just go to the App Store and Google or search the Couch to 5K running app, it's really great for beginners. So it'll tell you like run for 30 seconds, and then it'll keep time, and then whenever the 30 seconds is up, it'll say walk. So then it'll give you a structured 12-week running plan to run a 5K. And you can do it at your own pace. You don't have to worry about cadence if you're just looking to just get started. Couch to 5K is great. So I have nothing but great things to say about these apps. If you guys know me at all, you guys know how much I love that Run Zombies app. It's very similar to the Couch to 5K app, but it adds kind of like a gaming component to your runs. So definitely check that one out too if you're a big Zombies fan like myself. And then this is going to be an important slide, not only for runners, but for cyclists. And I'll talk about, when I get to the cycling portion, what I would recommend in terms of how you would program your cycling workouts, because they're going to be very similar concepts with running and cycling. Because now we're going to have to really go back to that second slide I showed you, where the body's different energy systems. So in order for you to become a better runner or a better cyclist, you're going to have to train those different energy systems. So if you look at the chart here, you can see that the long, slow distance runs or cycles, you could also relate this to cycling. You'd want to do those 1 or 2 days a week. Those are going to be, in terms of a duration, your rides or your runs that are from 30 minutes to 120 minutes. So 30 minutes to about 2 hours. So you would do that long, slow, very low or low to moderate intensity workouts 1 day a week, 1 or 2 days a week. So you just don't want to do those every single day of the week if you're looking to improve your performance. Because what you'll want to do is, again, get those different energy systems trained. Pace tempo rides or pace tempo runs, those are going to be something you'll want to do 1 or 2 days a week as well. That would be your runs or rides that are only 20 to 30 minutes. But it's going to be steady state where you're keeping the same pace throughout, and it's going to be very close to what your race pace would be. So if you're running a 5K, you would run that 5K pace like you would if you're actually doing the race. So it's going to be a little bit of a higher intensity run. Interval training. So interval training, when it comes to cycling or running, you want to do that 1 day a week or 2 days a week. With that, the work to rest ratio is going to be actually a very important thing to take note of. So if you're looking to train that oxidative or that aerobic system, you have to have a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. So for example, if you do 3 minutes of like running, you would want to do 3 minutes of walking or rest associated with that. And that's that 1-to-1 work to rest ratio. If you did like a 5-minute run, you'd want to do 5 minutes of walking or rest, because that's going to, again, allow the time for that oxidative energy system to recover appropriately. So since you're running for shorter distances or shorter time, you could have higher intensity in your runs. So they're going to be a little bit of a, not quite a sprint, but really close to one. That's what you would do during those interval training workouts. The next one, high intensity interval training. That is something you'll only want to do 1 time a week because it's a very high intense workout. That you would do a different work to rest ratio. That one you would do 30 seconds to 90 seconds of work, and then you'll want to have a rest that is 5 times that. So for example, if you did 30 seconds of work, you would do, I think it's about 2.5 minutes of rest. And that's going to give your body enough time to recover those first 2 energy systems that are those high intensity energy systems. And then finally, one of my favorite ones, the fartlek training method. That's about 20 to 60 minutes. You'll do that 1 day a week. And that's where you basically do a long, slow distance run, really light intensity. And then all of a sudden you run really fast, or from a cycling perspective, you would, pedal faster or go up a hill really fast. That is what they call fartlek training. It was created in Sweden, and it's a very proven, effective way to improve your endurance. So some people, what they'll do on their bike rides or when they run, they'll kind of, do like a light pace, light jog or light cycle on the flat surfaces. And then whenever they go to a hill, that's where they really ramp up the intensity. That would be an example of fartlek training. So like I said, with this slide, it's going to relate not only to runners, but cyclists, because this slide shows you different ways to train those different energy systems to make you a better, well-rounded cyclist and runner. Because if you're a runner, you just don't want to do a whole week of just long, slow distance runs if you're trying to improve your performance. You'll want to train those different energy systems by doing the high intensity work as well. But again, if you're a beginner, I wouldn't start with this plan. Start with the Couch to 5K plan, and until you get a good base, that's when you would transition over and you're like, all right, I'm ready to, crush my 5K times. I'm ready to kind of take my running or cycling to the next level. That's when you would start to do that kind of stuff. This is a really good book. I just threw this on here as a resource. It's I found it on Amazon. Everything's on Amazon. This is a book called Run Less, Run Faster. And I've actually done this actual training method before, and it really does work. It's the same concept as that previous slide, although you basically do just 3 quality runs a week. And again, this could even relate a little bit to cycling too, where the one run is kind of where you train that high intensity, it's shorter intervals. That you do that 1 day a week. You do the pace tempo where you run at your race pace for the second day. And then the third day, that's your long, slow distance ride or run. It's a really great plan because you only have to do it 3 days a week. And if you know your 5K time, either if you just try it on your own at home or actually do a 5K event, it'll give you specific pacing recommendations, like what pace you should run at for the different runs. So it's a really cool tool. It's from people that are certified strength and conditioning coaches. So it's just not someone just creating an article or following like a celebrity that's done this. And there's actual science behind it, which is really neat. So the hill runs are going to be really important. I mentioned that with the fartlek training. It's going to help to improve your running efficiency from a running standpoint, and it's going to increase your intensity. So from a cycling standpoint, it's a good way to train those first two energy systems that I mentioned on the second slide. It doesn't hurt to test yourself too, either from a biking standpoint or from running. This is an example, call it something called the max aerobic speed test. It's really easy for anybody to do. It's you have to know the distance that you covered, so you might have to do it on a track, or if you have a GPS watch, you'll have to know what your final distance is, and then you have to know how long it took you to complete the distance. So basically, what was pretty popular is a 6-minute test. Just try to see how much distance you could cover in 6 minutes. So it's a really great tool for you to kind of see a pre and post, like, hey, it took me, when I first started, it took me 1,500 meters or it took me 6 minutes to cover 1,500 meters. But, when I finished the program, I was able to cover, 1,650 meters in 6 minutes. So it gives you just like a good pre and post tool for anything. You could use it for your biking. You could use it if you're a runner. Notice on the screen here at the top, if you have like a Versa climber at your gym or a rower, you could do this exact same test with that. VO2 max testing, actually here at Tri-C, once the whole COVID outbreak stuff is over, we actually do offer VO2 max testing in our sport and exercise studies lab. We have a cycle that you could use for the test. So this picture that you see on the slide here is someone on the cycle doing a VO2 max test. And we also have a treadmill as well. So once we're back on campus and can resume, definitely looking at getting this test done. It's a pretty high intensity test, but it gives you a lot of great fitness data that I would obviously explain to you, and kind of help structure your workouts with this really cool piece of data that you could get from this test. So like I said, with running or cyclists, you could use that. So now going on to cycling, when it comes to the equipment, this is going to be really important from a cycling standpoint. So let's say you don't have a bike, and I know that getting a bike now is like also like the toilet paper shortage. There's not as many available right now, but you should still be able to find one. But if you're just looking to first purchase a bike, let your environment pick what type of bike you get. And what I mean by that is know your path. So if you are going to do mainly your cycling on the road, you'd obviously want to get like a road cycle bike. If you are going to be doing your cycling at the towpath, which is a gravel path, you'll want to choose like a hybrid bike or like a mountain bike. So the type of bike that you actually choose should depend on where you're predominantly going to do your biking. If you're going to do like the bike and hike trail and do like the mountain biking stuff, then you need the mountain bike. But if you're kind of in between, the hybrid bike is typically like a really good kind of safe option. And I'm not just saying that if you have a road bike, you can't go on the towpath. It's just not going to be as effective as as using like a hybrid bike or a mountain bike in that situation. But you could do it. If you notice with the road bikes, they have those skinny tires and they're nice and smooth because they're really meant for that road cycling. The mountain bikes are going to have a little bit of wider tires and better tread. That's for that gravel path. Same with when it comes to running, you could get as much as you want in terms of equipment. There's a lot of cool equipment when it comes to cycling that's out there. They have the cycling GPSs that are a standalone just for cycling. That's going to give you some pretty cool metrics. And then, of course, the bike cost is going to vary quite a bit. Road bikes are going to be a little bit more expensive than like the hybrid bikes typically. You could get like the different pedals and the cages, but I'll talk a little bit about that too. But yeah, so just know when you go to like a bike store, let them know what kind of trail you're going to be on most of the time, because that could help them in helping you pick the correct bike. When it comes to cycling too, just like with running, proper form is going to be such a big factor. You want to have a slight bend. So this is just getting your bike set up. You're going to want a slight bend in your knee when your leg is in the down position on the pedal. So if you look on the slide, this is an example of proper seat height. That's going to be really important to make it a more efficient ride for you, and use the muscles correctly when you ride. And then also the one thing I forgot to mention with the bikes, when you go to the bike stores, they actually have different sizes of the bikes. It's just not like a one size fits all for most bikes. They have a specific size based on how tall you are. So if you go to like a biking store, they'll be able to help you with that. But just something to keep in mind. Cycling, when it comes to riding your bike, it's not going to have as good of a benefit as it does with running. Running's got that magic number, that sweet spot. If you get to the 180, physiological things in your body kick on that don't happen unless you get to the 180. Cycling, it's not necessarily like that, but we do know that really good bikers or cyclists, they'll exercise at a cadence of 90 revolutions per minute. So what you would do to measure your cycling cadence is get one of these cycling pods. You can see by Garmin makes them, Wahoo makes them as well. They just clip onto your pedal, and it'll sync that data, because everything's Bluetooth now, to like your phone or your watch, and it'll tell you what your cycling cadence is. So if you're out there on the trails and your cycling cadence is at like 50, then you'll know that you want to increase it a little bit more. But like I said, if you're just starting off with cycling, don't try to go straight to the 90. You'll want to kind of gradually build your way up to it. And then cycling with power with watts. So cycling has an advantage over running in this category, mainly because, so again, if you remember from the running, the cycling with or running with watts, that's the way you measure intensity. Cycling with watts or power can be done through these different power meters. So what they are is you would use these instead of your pedals. You'd put them in your bike, and it'll actually measure. It'll give you a wattage rating, and then that'll tell you how intense your exercise is for cycling. The wattage thing is going to be an advantage to cyclists because it's been more widely researched, and they've really fine-tuned these cycling meters to be very, very, very accurate. Running with power is kind of a relatively new thing, but cycling, they've really mastered the power meter. If you have an indoor trainer at home, which is basically you take your normal bike that you do outdoors, you can actually hook it up to a device that you could do some indoor training with through Bluetooth, and you're using your normal outdoor bike to do indoor workouts. That also tells you watts and power as well. So those are really great tools. The only problem though with the cycling one is they're more expensive. So whereas the foot pod that I showed you before, that was like $100. For cycling power meters, they're definitely more expensive. You're looking at, definitely a couple $100. So, think about it for like a, birthday gift if you have a birthday coming up. Cycling programming is going to be very similar to what I showed you on that one chart for running. You're going to want to do different types of workouts to get different training benefits. You're going to want to do, you're going to want to do the interval training. You want to do those long, slow distance rides. You can do fartlek training with biking as well. Just note that, just refer back to that one slide for different ways to take your cycling performance to the next level. And then this is a slide that I won't go over this in too much detail. It's just post-workout stretching that you can do, because you'll want to do the static stretching at the end of the workout. you'll do the dynamic warm-up before. And then doing strength training can really improve your performance, whether running or cycling. You can see here on the list, there are some example of exercise that you would do that would be very specific to running and cycling. The first two are power movements, so don't start off with the first two that I have listed off in the slide, but feel free to kind of start off with any of the other ones here. Start off with body weight exercises first, and then gradually, increase weight or use weight using dumbbells or a barbell. But just, again, YouTube these. You can see that there are some good exercises out there for you. Hydration is going to be important for your runs and cycling. For exercise under an hour, water is actually going to be a better choice than Gatorade. Gatorade is basically good tasting sweat. It's got the exact same components of sweat. So if you sweat a lot, Gatorade is going to be a really good choice. But the problem is for exercise under an hour, we don't really sweat enough to actually need Gatorade. And you're getting in all that added sugar that might kind of, ruin your training benefit there. But if it's a really hot, humid day like it was earlier this week, using Gatorade for exercise under an hour is not a bad thing if you find yourself sweating a lot. So if you're sweating a lot, Gatorade is the way to go. But if not, good old-fashioned water will do the job. Way to tell if you're hydrated, just look at your urine color. So if your urine is pale yellow, then that's a good sign that you're hydrated. If it's dark, you need more fluids. So really clear-cut way to kind of know if you're hydrated. Obviously, you're not going to be doing that during your cycle or your run, but after you're done, it's going to tell you if you need more hydration or not. And then your post-workout nutrition, protein is going to be really important after your workout. And this slide just kind of shows you that when you're done with your workout, you should refuel within 30 minutes of completing your workout. So within 30 minutes, you should have some protein intake as well. You should have some carbohydrates. One of the best post-workout beverages is actually chocolate milk. It's got the perfect protein to carbohydrate ratio that you need post-workout. So chocolate milk's a good one, unless you're lactose intolerant. Definitely don't recommend that. You might have to then supplement with protein shakes instead. And then, of course, eat like you train. So, if you're going to be doing all this hard work, you're going to be running, you're going to be cycling more this summer, just don't waste it all by having a poor diet. Like I mentioned in a previous webinar, eat good about 80% of the time, and you can still have the 20% of the time for like your cheat days or your cheat meals, but just don't waste your benefit of exercising by eating poorly. So that's really all I had for the presentation, and I think we have like 5 minutes or so for questions. So if anybody's got questions, feel free to add it to the chat or
Yeah, Chris, that was great. I'm sure there'll probably be a couple questions coming in, but I just was really impressed. Had no idea all the incredible science and technology that's involved now. Energy system development, that is completely new to me. I had no idea.
And it is relatively new to our field, but it's a really great way to improve your performance just because you're going to be targeting those different energy systems. Because if you're at the end of a race, for example, you're doing a 5K and you see the finish line and you really want to get that better, final like push to the end. But if you haven't trained your other energy systems, that's going to be what's going to be active at the end of the race. That short intensity, high intensity, short kind of distance. It's going to be really, something that you're going to want to train to get that added benefit at the end of the run. All right, actually, we have a question here. It says the pose form of running is good for your heels to hit the ground. Oh, that's a good question. So when you do the pose form of running, you actually do not want to hit with your heels when you run. So you want to hit with your midfoot, which is basically envision like if you lift your heel up from the ground, you should basically just be able to put 2 fingers underneath your heel. Your heel should really never come in contact on the ground when you run, because it's actually going to be breaking your body. So I encourage you guys to jump up and down if you're on the call, jump up and down on your heels, and then jump up and down on your midfoot. And you'll notice that the heels has like no give. You'll just kind of like die on impact. The running on the midfoot is going to help to kind of give you that extra bounce and not break yourself when you run, because that's exactly what you do. If you hit with your heel first, you're actually breaking yourself every time that you move forward. So really good question there.
So Chris, let me ask you this. So when you say midfoot, I'm a novice here at this. And my thoughts were, does that mean the ball of your foot, or
actually,
how do you run on the mid part?
Yeah, you wouldn't want to go too much on the balls of your feet, because it'll look something like this. What that is, if you run on the balls of your feet, it's like a calf raise. If you ever done calf raises before, so what happens is you're going to be using a lot of your calf muscles instead, which is not going to be a necessarily good thing, because then you're going to overwork it. You might start getting those shin splints, which are annoying. So the midfoot is actually like right here. So when you run, so imagine this is the ground here. You would want to have your heel just like this. So you just want to like barely off the ground. Okay. Kind of landing on this mid portion of your foot. The balls of your feet, again, are going to force you to do more like calf raises for like a 20-minute run.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be more efficient than running on your heels, but you're going to really overuse your calves. And if your calves are really tight, your body's going to try to overcompensate and use the muscles in front of the front side of your calves, which are your shins, and that's when you'll start getting those shin splints.
Okay. So another quick question here. There's been a lot of controversy, and some people say, is the running on a treadmill versus running outdoors, there's obviously pros and cons to both. What do you recommend to people, Chris?
Yeah, kind of depends on what your target is. If your goal is to like run an actual like 5K event, for example, running outside is going to make it more specific to that. So if you're going to be trying to do a road 5K where you're actually hitting concrete, you'll want to train through that method, because the treadmill is different. The treadmill has some advantages from it being low impact, which is good, but it doesn't really, mimic the actual, running outside. So it really kind of depends. And then obviously the weather situation, if it's really hot, or, for some people, it's just more convenient to, like, I want to exercise at the same time every day. So if it's, more convenient that way, they might choose like a treadmill instead.
Okay. And then another question popped up. Are there shoes? Do you recommend, or are there any shoes designed to allow someone to run on their midfoot?
Yeah.
I know you pointed out your shoe.
Yeah. That is a really good question. I highly recommend, again, you guys go to those like running shoe stores. There's something called heel drop, the heel drop in your shoe. And depending on the type of heel drop, which I'm actually not sure of the actual numbers here, but there is a certain heel drop that you would want to look at in a running shoe that would force you to kind of run more so on your midfoot. But if you go to like one of those like Fleet Feet, Vertical Runner kind of stores, Second Sole, they'll be able to tell you like, hey, this is a good shoe for that. And then some people need more cushion than other people. The barefoot running, it's not going to be as cushiony, but it's going to help, work more of your foot muscles than you would if you were to just use like a rigid shoe like this. So yeah, it just kind of depends on your running style, but yeah, there are certain shoes that can help you land on your midfoot a little bit more.
Excellent. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That was a great question. Great question, great answer. Well, I hate to do this, Chris, but we're out of time. Thank you so much on behalf of everybody here at Corporate College and everyone on this today's session. Thank you so much for being here. And I just wanted to tell everybody a little bit more about Chris's program here. You know, the Tri-C Sport and Exercise Studies program really prepares individuals for careers and as becoming personal trainers, fitness specialists, and other health-related professions. You can visit tri-c.edu/exercise and find out a lot more information about Chris's programs. I highly recommend them. I only though participate as a visitor client, so to speak, though. But and also when it's safe to get back for physical content. I know a lot of gyms and sporting activities are starting to open up. So please look for ours to open up very soon at the Sport and Exercise Studies program, offering those fitness testing that Chris was talking about, the VO2 Max. I think you even asked the bod pod as well, and some other things. Yep. So then the training center is open to the general public, so you do not need to be a student to utilize these services, and it really helps understand body composition, personal training services, and other metabolic testing that the center has. So again, for more information on that, please visit tri-c.edu/fitness. And as a follow-up, to what I had said earlier about Ohio Tech Cred, and I didn't know there was as much technology in physical fitness as there was, but that's exciting. Anybody looking for any type of technology-based credential, the state of Ohio is now offering to reimburse employers for up to $2,000 per technology-based credential per employee. And if you are interested in learning more, please feel free to contact me, email me at geraldine.weiser@tri-c.edu. And I'd be happy to follow up with you with more information. And today's Chris's session is recorded, and we will have it available early next week on our website. Please go ahead and feel free to visit our free webinar series page, and then early next week. And you could always stay up to date with us by following us on social media. Thank you again, and please, everyone, continue to stay safe, well, and healthy. Thanks again, Chris.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.